Dere and the dicto. The literal translation of the phrase the dicto means about what is said, whereas dere means about the thing itself. It's like the belief in an individual entity that is a dere. The distinction can be understood by the examples of intentional contexts like context of thought, context of desire. So let's look at the context of thought. There are two possible interpretations of the sentence Peter believes someone is out to get him. On one interpretation, someone is unspecific and Peter suffers a general paranoia. He believes that it is true that a person is out to get him, but does not necessarily have any beliefs about who this person may be. What Peter believes is that the predicate is out to get Peter is satisfied. This is the de dicto interpretation. On the de interpretation, someone is specific. That someone becomes a specific entity, picking out a particular individual. There is some person Peter has in mind, and Peter believes that person is out to get him. In the context of thought, the distinction helps us explain how people can hold self-contradictory beliefs. Say Louis Lane believes Clark Kent is weaker than Superman, since Clark Kent is indeed Superman. Taken Dere, Louis's belief is untenable, that is undefendable. The names Clark Kent and Superman pick out an individual from the world, and a person or superperson cannot be stronger than himself. Understood de dicto, however, this may be a perfectly reasonable belief, since Lewis is not aware that Clark Kent and Superman are one and the same. So, taken to Ray, Lewis's belief is untenable, it is undefendable. So, that is what we're talking about. We're talking about Clark Kent being Superman, and Lewis's belief is that Clark Kent is weaker than Superman, while the Dere interpretation of this statement says that Clark Kent is Superman. So how could that be possible when the Dere interpretation here becomes that Clark Kent is Superman? So how can Clark Kent be weaker than Superman? If you understand what I'm saying, right? Clark Kent is Superman, so how can Clark Kent be weaker than Superman? And this goes on to say to prove that Louis Lane, the belief of Louis Lane is incorrect, and it is incorrect to say that Clark Kent is weaker than Superman. That is what I mean. That is what the statement Louis Lane's belief is untenable. That is what this statement means. The context of desire. Consider the sentence: Jaina wants to marry the tallest man in Folsom County. It could be read either as the dicto or dere. The meanings would be different in either of the cases. One interpretation is that Jaina wants to marry the tallest man in Folsom County, whoever it might be, or he might be. She wants to marry, her desire is to marry the tallest man. On this interpretation, what the statement tells us is that Jaina has certain unspecific desire. She is not specific about a person. What she desires is that Jaina is marrying the tallest man. That's her desire. The desire is directed at the situation. The situation above, the situation where she is marrying the tallest man, regardless of how it is achieved. The other interpretation is that Jaina wants to marry a certain man who, in fact, happens to be the tallest man in Folsom County. Her desire for that man, her desire is for that particular person, that man, and she desires herself to marry him, that is, that one specific guy. The first interpretation is the dicto interpretation because Jaina's desire relates to the words the tallest man in Folsom County. The second interpretation is dere because Jaina's desire relates to the man who those words refer to. Another way to understand the distinction is to ask what Jaina would want if a 9-foot tall immigrant moved to Folsom County. If she continued to want to marry the same old guy, right? And no change in her desire whatsoever, then this could be taken to have meant the original statement in a dere sense, that she is wanting to marry that same old guy. No change in her desires, the same old guy wants to marry the same old guy, right? If she no longer wanted to marry that man, but instead wanted to marry the new tallest man who is the 9-foot tall immigrant, the new tallest man in Folsom County, and saw this as the continuation of her earlier desire, which is to marry the tallest man, then she meant the original statement in a dicto sense.